Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so today is going to be kind of a off-topic type video day. I'm getting ready to shoot a video on another video in that series on me spending a whole lot of time with a 6,000 grit Waterstone Edge on my everyday carry. The other day my boy and I went deer hunting, tipped over a couple of mule deer, and I ended up dressing mine out with mine, and then I ended up finishing Vance's up with his knife that had a 325 grit edge on it. And so I've got some pretty cool things about that. But first I thought I would do a review. Now this is like a 20-year review or so on this book, The Art of the Rifle by Colonel Jeff Cooper. Get it, okay? Just get the book. I looked on Amazon right quick for it, and I guess they've only got one on there, and it's from like a reseller and had an ungodly amount of money for it. But I think you can go to Gunsight and pick this up, or they do have an ebook edition for your Kindle or for your phone or whatever for like $10 or so, okay? This book is, you know, you read a lot of books over a lifetime, right? And if you read, say, 500 books or so, over the course of, 5 years or a decade or whatever, there'll be a handful of books that stick out in your mind as books that really kind of, that really made a difference, okay, in your life or the life of, the people you come in contact with. This is one of those books, okay, as far as it pertains to marksmanship, rifles, rifle handling, hunting, things like that. Now, it being written by Colonel Jeff Cooper, okay, he was a military man, okay. I'm not a military man, have no interest in becoming a military man, not law enforcement, no interest in that either. I am a hunter, pest control, livestock protection, that type of dude. That's what I do with a rifle, okay. And so a lot of the stuff that I got from this book, while it was written by a military man, I assume for mostly military men also, I'll tell you what I took from it also. Okay, so like I said, so this is the book. I said get it. If you're a brand new hunter, get it. If you're an experienced hunter, get it. If you're teaching a kid or grandkid or somebody else, get the dang thing, okay? It's just like, it's an insanely helpful overview. So if you wanted a step-by-step teaching manual on how to teach somebody the basics of marksmanship and riflemanship, this is the book to get. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you our little hunting story, Vance and I, and then I'll tell you the story, and then we'll go back through, different things of what was in the book and stuff. So Vance and I, Vance is 19 now, and he's been deer hunting with me now. He's been hunting with me since he was about 8 or so. He's been hunting under his own tag since he was 12, which is the legal minimum age here in Wyoming to hunt big game. Started hunting wild turkey, I think, around 8, 9, something like that. So this year, him being 19, it's time for me to start kind of stepping back, not being quite so hands-on of a teacher, and letting him make his own mistakes, letting him do his own thing, all that kind of stuff. And it's a little on the tough side, but I think I might be doing okay. You'll have to ask him if I'm doing really good or not. Anyway, so we both had mule deer tags. So we go to this spot that I've been mule deer hunting. Also pulled a couple of elk out of there, as well as bunnies and whatever else. And so, we get there and we decide we're, going to take a walk instead of sitting in the truck, still hunting, all that kind of stuff. And so we decide to take this road, and we start, it's kind of an abandoned road. Forest Service has closed it off to let the, anyways. So we're walking up this road, and I'm glassing on the left side, and Vance is, I assume he's looking on the right. I'm not really paying that much attention. I figure he's there, he can look on the right. we get to the top of the hill, and we're in an area where, I mean, I've killed a whole lot of deer in that area, and so it's all a good spot. And I'm glassing along the hillside, and all of a sudden I feel this tap on my arm, and I look over, and Vance whispered, and he said there was a couple of deer over there, and they ran off. And I said, well, why didn't you shoot one? And he said, well, all they showed me was their butts. You don't shoot something that you want to eat in the butt. It just, it's not a good thing. And I said, well, did they run, or were they just kind of moseying along? Now, we were moving real nice and slow. So the chances, we just started to get some, it's kind of snow. It's that really round snowballs, not like snowflakes, almost like miniature hail. So if you're moving real nice and slow, if you do kick up some deer, chances are, especially with mule deer, they're just going to go over the next hill and kind of stop and kind of mill around a little bit. Unless they've been pressured beforehand, if you don't pressure them real hard, they're counting calories, especially this time of the year. They're trying to pack on as much fat as they can to get them through the wintertime. So they don't typically expend more energy than what they think they need to. Otherwise, they're burning up calories for no reason. So I said, well, okay, well, let's just go ahead and follow them a little bit. Now, granted, we left the truck and we grabbed our rifles, okay? I just brought these out for props. This is the one that I was shooting. It's a Winchester Model 70, not the Pre-64. It's the push feed type. Picked it up at a pawn shop for like $200. Whoever had it before me did a rattle can camo paint job, put a really nice Bell & Carlson synthetic stock on it. I topped it off with a Leopold 4-12 by 40 with these really nice see-through scope caps. On the other side, it's got a drop chart for the two different types of ammo that I shoot with it. A rifle sling. Up here, this is just a whole bunch of electrical tape. Okay, and then the muzzle has been, taped off, because when you're hunting centerfire rifles like that, I tend to tape off the muzzles just so that snow and things like that can't get down in there. The muzzle blast will blow that electrical tape off long before the bullet gets there. So it's all, all gain and no bad. Anyway, so I just brought this as a prop to explain a little bit later in the book. So I hadn't, I didn't tell him anything about his rifle. He was shooting a rifle that a friend of mine who's a gunsmith and I put together. Beautiful Yugo M48 or the 2447, one of those Turkish Mausers. Put a match grade barrel on it, Schillen, I think, and 7x7 Mauser. Slicked up the action, drilled and tapped it for scope bases, had him install a turn down bolt. I installed a Boyd's, I think, aftermarket walnut stock, refinished that, put a recoil pad on it, glass bedded it, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's a really nice rifle. And it's one that he shoots well. But I didn't talk to him at all about loading his rifle, about what scope power to put on it, what to turn his scope to, to chamber around, to put a safety on, none of that stuff. So as far as I know, he left the truck the same way as I did, with a full magazine plus one in the chamber, with the safety on and the scope turned down to its lowest level, with tape on the muzzle, and slung it over his shoulder, and away we go. So anyway, we kind of ease up over the hill, and when you're doing that, you don't just go blundering over the hill, As you come up over that hill, you walk real slow, make sure you keep your breathing and your heart rate down, so in case you do have to make a snapshot, you can. Because it's really tough to take a shot when you're like that, it's really tough. And then as you come up over that hill, you use your binoculars, and you're almost like taking the other hillside, and cutting it into slices, okay? So as you come up over this hill, you can see the top of the other hillside, so you glass it. And then you take another step, maybe 2 steps, and then you glass it again. And also, as you're coming up over this hill, if there's any cover that you can use, big boulders, rocks, trees, anything like that, anything that'll break up your outline and give you a rest to shoot from, stay on, get to that if you can. Boy, I cleaned out the chicken run yesterday, and all this talking really gets to me. So we come up, and all of a sudden I see a doe over there behind the trees. Now, we are meat hunters. Honestly, I've never been able to eat an antler, so I don't really care that much about them. As long as the tag that you get from the Game and Fish says, any sex, or, you obviously don't want to have a bull tag and shoot a cow, or have a cow tag and shoot a bull, anyway. So I see a doe over there behind the tree. So I whisper to Vance, and he says, hey, how about we go get behind those rocks? I'm like, oh, attaboy, right? So we go get behind these rocks, and so now he's got his nocks up and glassing, and he sees a buck and a doe bedded down underneath a tree, kind of in front of a boulder face. I see another doe, the original one that I saw behind the trees. She's, standing up feeding. The other two are bedded down. And so he asks me, he says, well, what do you think I should do? And I said, well, we're here to get one, or 2 if we can. I said, now bedded down shots, they're a little bit tough to take, because if, everybody always talks about the animal that's standing up, right? If this is his head, this is his body. This is a foreleg, you want to shoot right nice and tight behind the leg, get a nice double lung shot, it's over and done with. A bedded down animal, remember, this picture right here looks two-dimensional, even though the animal is 3-dimensional. Now, when the animal is laying down, okay, now the lungs and the heart are a little bit tougher to find, because they're not in the normal type position. So I told him, I said, hey, it's your deer, it's your shot, you do what you want. That was me backing off. I said, I can totally, understand you shooting him in his bed, because then, that gives him the cleanest death that you can possibly give him. He's sleeping 1 minute here the next, or sleeping here 1 minute, and the next minute, he's grazing in that, big field in the sky. I said, or wait until he stands up and get a better shot. They don't really seem to care that we're here, if they even know that we're here. So you got time. I said, just let me know, before you do, because then, I'll be ready to shoot another one. And so, I'm sitting there waiting, and I'm looking at that one doe in my crosshairs and thinking, yeah, if he goes and shoots that buck, then I'll shoot that doe, and then, we'll drag them both home. We've got the game cart, I only have to fire up the meat cooler once, and then, it'll all be over and done with for this year. Well, I was just going to, drop my rifle and bring my binoculars up, because I saw something else over there, and all of a sudden his rifle goes off. Now, whether he didn't tell me, or more than likely what happened was I'm starting to, my hearing's not so great anymore, so more than likely he whispered that he was going to shoot, and I just didn't hear it. So his rifle goes off, so I thought, oh boy, I guess we're going for this now. So up comes my rifle, and the doe that I was looking at, she started running towards us, okay? Which means she didn't have a clue where we were, all right? So as she comes towards us, I'm tracking her, because a running shot at you, even kind of quartered, is, boy, you don't really want to take that on an unwounded animal. So she's running towards us, and then all of a sudden she turns, and I thought she was turning and stopping. I think she was just turning and slowing down. So I went ahead and dropped her, and ended up hitting about 6 to 7 inches farther back than what I was after. Still in front of the diaphragm, but, and still a really good shot, just not exactly what I was after. So he shot, I shot. I asked him, I said, where's yours? Now, he didn't move, okay? We're on this rock face, right? I'm kind of on the bottom edge of it. We're both kneeling down. I'm kind of in a really low kneeling type position, braced on the rock. He was in a higher kneeling position, braced on the rock. So he shot, and then I shot, and he had never moved at all, except for to cycle his bolt, okay? That's key right there, something we'll remember here in the book. Well, no, we'll just talk about it now. So, like I said, Mr. Cooper was a military guy, right? So in here, an awful lot, you'll hear him talk like, shooting from a cover or, from a protected position or something like that. Kind of the same deal goes with hunting, only the deer aren't shooting back. Or if they are, that's kind of a wild area, right? Maybe you shouldn't go to that area again. But on the other hand, you are still... Had Vance stood up or anything after he shot his, then that doe would have seen him and turn around and run the other way. Well, if she's running the other way, all it sees is her butt. And again, we don't shoot things that we want to eat in the butt. So with him staying still right then, after he shot, he did a couple of things. One, he allowed me to take a shot and take another animal. Okay. Two, he stayed in a good, stable firing position, so in case the deer that he shot got up, or he made a bad shot, or for any other reason, if he needed to shoot again, he was still from that good, solid, stable, shooting position that had a little bit of cover so that they didn't know that we were there. A whole bunch of that stuff I've just been drilling into his head over the years, and just to see him do that on his own without me having to tell him, that's thanks to this fella right here, because this fella right here is basically who taught me how to shoot a center fire rifle. I mean, I had some friends along the way, and some other books and everything, but that guy right there, he's the man. So anyway, Vance is still watching his deer through his scope, making sure, he's not doing anything. I hit mine. I saw her run a little bit and then fall over. So I kept an eye on mine, and I asked him about his, and he says, well, he's still there. And I said, okay, well, if he's still there, that means you caught him in the spine. Because otherwise he would have got up and run off. So I looked over. Sure enough, I saw, an ear twitching, and I saw he's down, okay. So I went back to looking at mine. Well, then I just let Vance go. And after about 2 minutes or so, he says, well, I think we can go ahead and go. Because, see, I'm still getting used to letting him go. He's still getting used to me letting him go without me telling him what to do all the time, right? And I said, I think that's a dandy idea. I said, have you got your rifle topped off and, scope turned back down? And he says, yeah, well, I got the scope turned back down, and I'll go ahead and top off the rifle again. Because remember, you've watched them in the scope for a while. But sometimes it takes a little while for them to recover and then come back to life if they do, so to speak. Okay? There is a shot that you can make, on a sideways animal. If you shoot high of the lungs and underneath the spine, I believe it's called mustanging, you can put a bullet right through there, and it'll drop an animal, stun it, and a couple minutes later, all of a sudden, that animal comes back up. You didn't really do anything. You punched a hole in between the lungs and the spine. You didn't really clip the spine, and you didn't really clip the lungs. Animals can survive that shot. It will knock them down. The shot going to their spine, will knock them out. But a lot of times they'll get back up, and sometimes that takes a couple of minutes. So anyway, he turns, pops open the chamber, pushes that round down, puts another round on top, chambers it, double checks the safety, scope turned down, all this kind of stuff, all on his own. And then I said, all right, well, you lead us. And he takes off nice and slow. Another key, right? Okay, because remember, you can't shoot if you are huffing and puffing and puffing. So, nice, easy walk on up to, we ended up walking up to mine first because she had come towards us, right? So, Checked her first. Yep, she was done. Went over, checked his. Yep, he was done. As soon as he found, touched the eyeball with the muzzle, I said, okay, well, go ahead, start dressing your animal out. So he reaches down, makes sure he's dead, and then opens up the bolt, pushes that round back down, closes the bolt on an empty chamber, double checks that his scope is, everything is ready to go, and that's it. A lot of the stuff that happened in that hunt, like I said, is stuff that Colonel Cooper tells you about, all right? And there's a lot of stuff that is not really talked about near as much in the gun magazines, okay? You've got some really good writers out there. Craig Boddington, Wayne Van Swol, I think Brian Pierce, there's another guy. The guy that really likes the 7x5, Barsness, I think. Okay, those guys have been around a long time. They've been hunting a long time. They will throw in little tidbits like that in there, okay? But managing your rifle, okay, going out with the scope on the lowest setting, okay, because if you have an animal that's way away, more than likely that animal don't know you're there. So there's time to turn the scope up. But if you've got your scope turned up and an animal steps out at 25 yards, now there's not enough time to turn the scope down before you take the shot. Okay? Or by the time you get up and you're done fiddling around trying to turn your scope down, that animal's gone, right? They don't want to go home to sit in your freezer. Keeping a full magazine at all times. You get done shooting. If there's a lull in your shooting, top that magazine off. You never know. I mean, I remember the first time that I went antelope hunting with Vance, and we had the animal get up thing, right? We were antelope hunting at a buddy of mine's place, and he runs cattle, and there was a lot of antelope that year. And it was kind of the same deal. Vance and I stalked up on this group of antelope. I always let him go first. You always let the inexperienced shooter, or the shooter with the least amount of experience, let them go first. Okay, that way they get the premium shot, and then the guy with the more experience, he can take up. He can pick up another animal if he wants to. So he dropped his. The herd kind of was confused at the shot. So I went ahead and dropped another one, because I figured we were there all right, and I had a tag too. So his dropped, mine ran off a little bit. Well, generally speaking, they do. You shoot them through the lungs, it takes them a little bit to die. So he runs off. So we go to Vance's first, double check, make sure that that one's down. I think it was a doe. And then we go over to find mine, and the whole time, I get it, Vance was excited. He was 12 years old. He kept going ahead. He kept trying to get in front of me. And when I would swing around, he wouldn't swing with me. And I kept telling him, I'm like, boy, you got to stay back here with me. And he says, well, we got to get to it. And I said, yeah, but we'll get there when we get there. So this antelope was kind of in an opening, and there was there was a house about 700-800 yards behind it, right? But there was a little hillside right behind the antelope. So I'm kind of going over a little bit because I want that hillside behind that animal when I approach it, because I did not see it go down, and I wasn't able to watch it for a couple of minutes before, because he had run out of sight. So I swing us around, and get that hillside behind that antelope. Now I got a good stop for my bullets in case I got to take a snapshot, right? And I finally get Vance roped into staying next to me. And so he started going, this time we're 70, 50 yards out, 50, 70, something like that. And he starts trying to get ahead of me again. And I said, boy, you can't do that. Stay beside me. What happens if he gets up? And he says, Dad, he won't get up. You shot him. And before the M in him got out of Vance's mouth, that buck stood up. And I dropped him right on the spot. And Vance is just looking at me because it scared him. And he says, "What the heck happened?" And I said, "He stood up." I said, sometimes you don't get the perfect shot. Sometimes they will stand up as you get close. That antelope did Vance's hunting career the biggest favor that he ever could. Ever since that antelope, Vance has always walked nice and slow up to his animal. And a lot of that stuff is in here. Okay, so real quick, we'll go over the table of contents. In here, we've got the queen, Y, the instrument, which is the rifle, gun handling, which is an awful lot of, use the safety but don't trust it, keep an empty magazine until you're actively hunting, that sort of a deal. Or empty chamber, excuse me, keep an empty chamber until you're ready to shoot or you're in a position where you think you might shoot. Sighting and aiming. In that, he goes over his views on rifle scopes and iron sights, things like that. Trajectory, bullets do not fly in a straight line. You sight them in on an incline, so that as that bullet goes out and then it will drop into, your target at whatever range that you zero it. The firing positions, okay? So when Vance and I killed these two deer the other day, we weren't, just standing. Standing is the least supported and the least steadiest and the least accurate position there is. We could not get prone because the grass, the sagebrush, all that kind of stuff. But we were able to get into a kneeling position over a boulder, okay, which is the steadiest position that we could get. That's what we used. And that was, Vance suggested that. I was really proud of it. The hand and the finger, that goes over working the bolt and trigger control. The eye, I'll probably talk about eye dominance, keeping both eyes open if you can, that sort of deal. The shooting sling, okay. Notice that both of my rifles, now these are just two of my favorite rifles that I brought in. Both of my rifles have got shooting slings, okay. Not only are these handy carrying straps, but they are also very, very good shooting aids, okay? You can take shots wrapped up in a sling that you might not take without that sling, okay? It welds you to the rifle is what that sling does, okay? And the more solid you and that rifle get together, the better. That is something that you hardly ever see in the gun magazines, is people talking about the shooting sling as a shooting aid instead of just a carrying strap. breathing control, the snapshot, shooting quickly, okay? That's what I ended up doing on that deer, okay? Granted, I was from a stable shooting position. I was nice and calm. I had a good rest, all that kind of stuff. But that was still a snapshot, okay? Because I didn't realize that Vance was going to be shooting when he did, and it was on a moving or a semi-moving animal, okay? Snapshots are very important to learn how to do. The wind and its effect on your bullet's trajectory. Also, the wind's effect on your body as you're trying to shoot, okay? If you're in a spot where it's really windy like here, and that wind is pushing your body around, that affects your shot also. Moving targets, zeroing, reloading, and readiness, we went over that. The mind of the rifleman, that has an awful lot to do with self-control, okay? You cannot become a good rifleman if you can't control yourself. This year, like I said, Vance is 19, which means he's been hunting since he was 12, which means that he has probably taken, give or take, 7 deer and 7 antelope, okay? And I think there was like 2 or 3 years in there he missed. So he's, he's taken at least a dozen big game animals, okay? Probably 4 or 5 turkeys, I don't know how many cottontails, gophers, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like he's young, but it's not like he's a beginner anymore, okay? When you are young, or young as in either in years or as in hunting experience, that is very tough to control yourself when you've got that animal in front of you and everything is new and you're excited. And boy, you know, I mean, the crosshairs are just shaking all over the dang place. And, you know, it's very tough to control yourself. As you get older and, you know, you do more, it becomes easier, but it's still something you have to do. You have to control yourself to be able to make that shot. If you can't control yourself and make a good shot, then you are not doing that animal any good at all. Okay, that's where bad shots come from, and bad shots are, well, there is a reason they call them bad. So Advance this year, I kind of wondered the way he was going through everything, almost like a checklist in his head, you know, the whole hunt and everything. I was almost wondering if he was, you know, if he'd lost the excitement. But then when he reached up to point where his deer was at, I saw his hand shaking right after the shot. So I realized that he was excited, but he had controlled himself well enough to you know, make a good shot and do a good hunt. The mystique of the one-shot kill, that's a topic for another time. And then testing and evaluation of marksmanship, just kind of to see where you are. And that's a good thing also. Anyway, some other little takeaways is in that book, he talks about the perfect rifle. In his mind, it's something what he calls a scout concept. A bolt-action rifle. I'm pretty sure that's what he was after. It's been a couple of years since I read the book. I'll probably read it again as soon as we get back in the house. But a good bolt-action rifle chambered in basically a standard cartridge, okay? That is anything from, you know, I mean, I've killed antelope, anything from a 223, 22, 250, 243, you know, blah, blah, all the way up to a 338 Win Mag. I've killed deer with anything from a 223 or a 6.5 Swede all the way up to, you know, 308, never a 30-06, 277 mag, you know, all the way up to a 338 Win Mag. Elk, I think I've only done 338 Win Mag, 308. That could be it. I have to stop and think about that. I've only killed about a dozen elk, and I haven't killed one in a couple of years just because we hadn't needed the meat. But anyway, a nice bolt-action rifle and a standard cartridge. So, you know, and really it doesn't matter. I would stay away from the Magnums because they give you more recoil. Recoil makes the rifle harder to control. You'll notice that this rifle doesn't have anything extra on it. It's the rifle, the scope, the sling, a drop chart, and a little bit of tape on the muzzle. There's no bipods on there. There's no, you know, bubble leveler things on there. There's no nothing. It's nice and simple. It's nice and light. With this rifle, you know, I'm good out to 400 yards, pretty easy on an antelope or a deer. That might be pushing it on an elk with a 270, but I think I'd probably go ahead and do it. You know, I mean, as long as you put the bullet in the right spot, then, you know, it works just fine. But the greatest takeaway with this is that you have a standard weight rifle. Action weight really, or the action style doesn't really matter. But it's a standard weight and a standard cartridge with a standard scope. It doesn't beat you up. You can practice with it as much as you want, and your shoulder isn't going to get sore or bruised or anything like that. You're not going to, you know, bruise your cheek or anything like that on a standard rifle like this. There's not really a whole lot to go wrong, and you can just shoot it a lot. And the more you shoot it, the more practice you do, the better you get. So anyway, like I said, if you're a new shooter, get the book. If you're an experienced shooter, get the book. You'll learn something out of it. Every time I read it, I remember something. Or learn something again. Especially if you're going to be teaching a new shooter, get the book and use it like it's a a training manual, step by step, chapter 1 through chapter whatever. Now, this book is an overview, okay? He doesn't really go into details about cleaning a rifle, okay, and the proper jag and brush and rod and all that kind of stuff on how to clean a rifle, how to clean a bore. He doesn't go into any gunsmithing at all, okay, not how to recrown a barrel, how to clean up a trigger, how to mount a scope, any of that kind of stuff. He doesn't really go too deep into terminal ballistics, okay, what style of bullet to use, for what game animal, all right? If you try to load a, let's say a 30-06 up with a 125 grain bullet for antelope, and then you try to use that, and it'll work just fine, and you use that same load on an elk, probably not going to work so good. So he doesn't go into that sort of terminal ballistics. But as far as a general overall, you've already got a rifle, it's already got a compatible load with whatever it is that you're hunting with. This is how you practice, this is how you train, this is how you manage that rifle. There is no better book that I've found, and I've got quite a few of them. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.